The safe house smelled of old coffee and the kind of nervous energy that breeds in rooms full of secrets. A single lamp threw a pool of light over a battered table, where maps and phone screens lay like open wounds. Outside, London carried on as usual, indifferent to the small conspiracies hatched behind closed doors. TJ and Rachel had been led in through a back lane. They paused in the doorway and took inventory: 3 faces, 2 coffees, 1 skateboard propped against a wall. The people who gathered were not exactly the bland professionals TJ had pictured. They looked like London, raw, weird, and impossible to catalogue. "Aysha," said the woman who stood when Rachel nodded. Her handshake was firm, quick, a pulled-in kind of warmth. She was slight, younger than she looked on paper. She had PJ trousers on, with scuffed boots, and a laugh that did not reach the eyes. "Call me A17, she said, as if that explained everything, and nothing. That was her coded name on the field, when she is on one of her special missions. Omarri, the boy with the skateboard, muttered, sitting on the radiator, and rolling one trainer heel over the other. He was 17 all the way. The city had kept his elbows hard, and his smile cautious. "I only own 2 things in life that matter. This," he tapped the deck like it was a talisman, "and a map of every dead end that'll keep you alive." He gave TJ a look that balanced curiosity with the bluntness of someone who'd slept on cold concrete and learned to name the shadows. Sam was older, or felt it, eyes like a ledger. She watched TJ the way someone would watch the weather, not fully trusting it, measuring every move of it. When she spoke it was businesslike. "We keep moving. 1 step wrong, you're a story," on the 6:30 evening news headlines. They fed them too much and not enough. Names, safe routes, nicknames. The TV in the corner murmured foreign news feeds, and the room felt like a throat clearing itself before it spoke a confession. Aysha's voice cut across the chatter. "You want to know why we're going to Lagos? Because that's where the noise started. That's where TJ was cornered by a sleeper cell." Her cold eyes rested on TJ, like the laser of a sniper. "We are going to Lagos, Nigeria. Because someone flicked the switch and the world answered the call." She let the flashback pull taut while the present loosened at the seams. When Aysha spoke of Morocco, the lamp threw her profile into a harsher line. She told it like a confession and a warning. Sam's partner had been a thing of light and habit, a man cut down from the street in Casablanca, taken in the half-light of a night market. The eyewitnesses had been a parade of uncertain memories: a flash of white t-shirt, a pair of Nike trainers, a red baseball cap seen in peripheral panic. A composite was drawn, a face emerged with long light hair, a square jaw, big ears, a face everyone recognized in different places, and therefore no one could pin down. "They arrested some men," Sam said, voice low. "They were released them. No charges, no case were brought against them. We were left with nothing but guesswork and grief." She pressed her hands flat on the table, sadly. "We learned that eyewitnesses lie because they want to make sense of horror. I learned to make sense of it for them, and to use those seams." Aysha laughed then, not a warm laugh. "I told Sam she was being followed. I told her the man was wearing a red cap. She thought I was seeing things. Or making them." She rolled her eyes at nothing and everything. "That's how Sam and I started. Coffee. Suspicions. Then payroll. She got me hired, first as informant, then ended up on the field, as field agent." Omarri slid forward, suddenly serious. "I gave the police a description once. I witnessed a crime. I gave accurate description of the criminals: white t-shirt, trainers, cap. And even drew their portraits. And that's how they got caught. But I remember the alleyways more than their faces. I remember how to disappear." He was the map that refused to be bought. At age 13 I was non-conforming, and sent from mainstream school to alternative provision because I couldn't shape my shoulders to fit authority. That schooling in the margins had taught him to be quick, to be small, to be invisible until the right moment. Aysha, A17, had a folder of diagnoses you could read like a litany: bipolar, paranoid personality disorder. She moved like someone living under glass, manic spikes that flared with drugs and brightness, then collapsing depressions like curtains. She'd been considered a risk, an irritant, until someone with a badge and patience put a handle on her storm. They called her A17, because they swore she entered adulthood at 17, and never quite left. The label stuck like a bruise. The safe house was quiet while they filled in the human holes. Their histories were not linear, they were collisions. Sam had lost a partner to a night in Morocco. Aysha had a habit of barging into strangers' lives and making them hers. Omarri lived like someone who measured London, by the places you could turn and be unseen. And the darkest piece of the evening came up like reflux. They had Abdi, the binded man, in one of the spare rooms. Sam took TJ to the doorway. Abdi was tied to a chair in the middle of nowhere, the story having thinned into an ugly knot of accusations. He kept insisting he knew nothing. He was broken and pleading, the syllables of innocence rasping out of him, like air from a punctured lung. "Do it right now," Abdi heard over and over. Abdi's voice was thin in Sam's memory. "You lying bastard," Aysha had screamed at him in that other room. "You better be glad Sam ain't here, or I'd have blown your brains to pieces. You better remember what you did," Abdi hissed back, his own pain like a weapon. "I'm innocent." The stories tangled, the missing flash drive, the Moroccan assignment that ate men and left witnesses with holes, the half-baked identifications that turned suspects into ghosts. Sam had watched a man's life get filleted by rumor after the arrest and release. She'd held nothing then but a promise: find out. Make the holes matter. Omarri had sat on a crate during the interrogation, skateboard upside down across his thighs, watching the conversation with the patience of someone who has seen too many small tragedies, and learned to make decisions fast. "You think the flash drive got lost?" Omarri had asked, no one in particular. Aysha's answer had been a hissed heartbeat. "It didn't get lost. It was taken. They wanted it out of Morocco. They wanted it hidden. And someone here made sure it happened." The phone had rung in the middle of that argument. One of those cinematic rings, insistent, too clear. Everyone froze. Abdi's thin face went white. "Not him," he croaked. Aysha slapped the table. The shout came raw, small and dangerous. "Do it. Confess." "Abdi's telling the truth," Sam said calmly enough to freeze the room. "There's more than one story being told about that night." The phone rang again. Sam picked it up. "We heard her before she spoke." Her face had hardened, the way stone does before it cracks. "They changed the target," she said into the receiver, voice flat as a blade. "We have a new location. Lagos is no longer speculative. It's active." As she replaced the phone, the lamp seemed to dim. TJ watched them, their faces, their small violent histories, and realized the truth behind Aysha's motto, the one she said with a kind of religious fervor: trust no one. No one in that room was purely ally or enemy. Each had a ledger, favors owed, debts paid, betrayals that hadn't yet found a price. Omarri rolled his skateboard toward the door, balanced it on the tips of his trainers. "I know the lanes," he said, simple as a prayer. "If we go fast. The city likes to swallow people whole, if you give it the chance." Aysha's eyes glittered. She looked like someone who had rehearsed betrayal in the mirror. "We leave tonight," she murmured. "We move before the men in suits figure out we know where to look." Sam closed the folder with a slap that sounded like a verdict. "Right now," she said, and the word landed, like a hand on TJ's shoulder, steady, immovable. And the phone rang one last time. This call was not the handler. Not Sam. Not the others. The caller ID was masked, no signature to trace, no logo to anchor it. The room held its breath. A voice, flat and quick, cut through the silence. "You have 1 hour. Get to the river. Don't stop. They're watching. The line went dead. For a moment there was nothing, but the sound of the city beyond the safe house wall, brakes, a shout, a siren pulling memory through the glass. Everyone looked at everyone else. TJ met Rachel's eyes and felt his world shrink, to the size of the lamp on the table, small and fragile and burning. Trust no one, Aysha had said. The room felt like a trap sprung tight. Do we go? TJ asked. Aysha smiled without humor. You don't get to ask that question, she said. You get to move. Or you get to die thinking about it. They gathered their things. Omarri slung his skateboard like a makeshift weapon over his shoulder, doing a quick check of his pockets. Sam checked the bolt holes, the dead drops. Aysha checked faces like a hawk checking for eyes. On the way out, TJ looked back at Abdi through the open door. The man's eyes followed them with something like relief and terror mixed together. The safe house door closed behind them like a lid. Outside, the fog swallowed Westminster and the city kept its secrets for those who could pay. They had 1 hour. And somewhere, in a room with screens and a finger on a trigger, someone else was already deciding how the chase would end.